All right, good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. I'm Jeffrey Rickman. This is the Plain Spoken Morning Briefing, and it's August 27th, 2025. Can you believe it? 7:31 a.m. It's an overcast day over here, smelling like smoke. We were supposed to get rain. I haven't checked the weather, though. It's been a disappointing time. I was pleased to see yesterday that there was decent engagement on the piece that I did with Will Willimon. I got immediate pushback in the morning that was kind of discouraging. Got a little bit more feedback on that later in the day. I don't know how many people are aware. I wasn't explicit about it in the conversation. I did have Will acknowledge that the previous pastor who had died, unfortunately, I think is how he put it, had actually taken his own life, and that Willimon had been one of the many pressures that this pastor was dealing with. And so there are a lot of people who've laid this pastor's death at Willimon's feet. And I talked about that several months ago. Um, if I can't pretend to know the particulars of Willimon's behavior, the impression I got was that he was overly personal and invasive about it. But even so, um, there have been times where I needed to talk about someone unfavorably on here, and I was afraid. A lot of these people that I've talked about are unbalanced people, and I'm afraid that they are gonna kill themselves or do something really bad because of. If you've noticed, there are a lot of people I don't even name. We might talk about them, but I don't even know. I don't want to bully them or bring any personal attention on them. Uh, but even so, if someone were to do that after I talked about them, I would just hate it if someone laid their death at my feet. Um, I just don't know that I want to live in a world where someone kills themselves and we're all looking at someone to blame. There are people who are very cruel to others, and we should talk about that. Um, but I don't know. I know there are other people who think that I really should have taken him to task on that one, but it was the golden rule thing, and I imagine what if I was just really invested in um, a local church and I was really disappointed in them and their leadership, and I wanted to talk about that. Is that not something that we can talk about? I'm sure he was not pure in the way that he did that. I am not one of these people who's been watching closely, but I just know if I were in his situation, I wouldn't. It wouldn't. And I'm just not sure what good it does for everybody to lay the death of that man at his feet. In the end, we all are responsible for ourselves. And I know that sounds cruel, but I really think that's the way it is. And if at any point I become unstable personally and I'm thinking about suicide, I need to step out of ministry. And man, if you see it, you need to help me. Uh, you just can't. We were listening to that pastor. What was it? 2 weeks ago? I'm forgetting his name now, but they had audio of him being confronted by church leadership about complaints brought about him, and he was saying, "I'm going to kill myself," as though it's their responsibility. And once you have somebody act in that way, and I'm not saying at all that that's how this pastor at Buncombe Street behaved. I'm just saying the weight. There is a lot of weight, and not everybody can handle it. And just because somebody loves the Lord does not mean they should be in that position. Just because someone is successful by some standards does not mean that they should be in that position. Um, so my concern is not, um, going on a hunt for everybody who makes pastors feel bad. Although I have energy for that. My concern is more. Let's make sure that the people we have in religious leadership are up to the task, and then let's make sure that our churches are good places to do that. I've just seen a lot of really toxic churches, and that's what I decided to spend time with Willimon on at the end. Is what are some things to avoid doing in the church to maintain the integrity and the function of a group. So I may or may not come around to regretting the Willimon interview, but so far some pushback, but a lot of people saying, "Man, I'm really glad you did this. This was really good," and a lot of people writing me and saying, "This was really good. How this happened." And anyway, I hope that it is helpful in helping people understand one another. And I don't necessarily want people to get along better. I just want them to disagree better so that we're not caricaturing one another or putting words in each other's mouths, but we actually understand each other. So, um, one of the things that I did that I want to see people do more, and I didn't invent this, this is called the Rogerian method, but to show that you understand somebody who is different from you, articulate what you understand them to be saying in your own words, and then figure out what the difference is between what they said and what you just said. And so you saw two times in particular where I did that with Willimon, and both times, as I recall, he said, well, I don't really like the way that you put that, but I don't have a different or better way to put it. So it could be that he just didn't have the energy for it. It could also be that I got him right, but it just doesn't look good from a certain point of view. And of course, a lot of things that he says don't look good from a certain point of view. And the number one thing that I wish I had pushed back on is whenever he says, the belief that many paths lead to the same God is a Methodist view, I think is just repugnant. I meant to at least circle back and make sure, did you mean to say it like that? But there were a lot of things that if I'd been nitpicky, I would have come at, but that's not nitpicky. That's a pretty basic one. So anyway, kicking myself and mulling these things over, they help me do a better job over time. And I appreciate y'all bearing with me and thinking through these things with me. Appreciate those who signed on early. We had a few that were earlier than the chat opened up. We got Mark Schilling and Brad Jordan and Charles Arison all signed on. And then Stacia was, oh, okay, but Tim beat her. Okay, that's why I'm not seeing Stacia. But we got Tim here. We got Stacia signed on. Eileen, Guten Morgen. That's German for those of you who don't know German. Wally, good morning in Missouri. Hey, Lisa, good to see you, sister. Dreama says, good morning. She missed us yesterday, visiting in Texas. Yeah, well, yeah. Everybody remember, hit the like button. Thank you, Sister Dreama. Tyson, good morning, friend. Uh-oh, I'm on the wrong page here. Oriole, very interesting interview with Will. You did a good job resisting little digs. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, and the little polite ribbing, that was something that a number of people said that they actually enjoyed, was the polite ribbing between us, showing grace, keeping the interview focused. Thank you, sister. I'm glad you saw that. We're there for each other. Yeah, that's exactly right. Hey, brother Joseph. And Lisa says, I thought the interview was well done. As an interviewer, you have to be trustworthy. You can't afford to gain a reputation for being one-sided. Well, and what I hope happens, as I hope people on the other side keep talking to me, I'm going to continue to critique leftism, progressivism, neo-Marxism, but I don't want to do so as a partisan that intentionally skews and misconstrues what people say. Like, I mean, there are going to be people who, if I say a certain set of things, they're just going to write me off no matter what. But I do think it's important to put in the time and energy to show I understand this stuff. I see how these ideas fit together. I can articulate what it is that they believe, and then I can articulate why they're wrong. And this is something that a lot of people have lost bandwidth for, is we have a notion today that if you understand somebody, then you agree with them. And that is absolutely not the case. I think that, and this has been really frustrating for church people. Church people will come to me with, here's what I think should happen. Here's what I think you should do. And I have this clear feeling, and I've reasoned it out this way. And sometimes I'll agree, but other times I'll say, okay, here's what I understand you to be saying, and here's how the ideas fit together for you, right? And I'll say, yeah. I'll say, okay, here's what's wrong with that. Here's a scripture. Here's how I've thought about it. Here's why I can't do what you've asked me to do, or here's why we're not going to do what you think we need to do. And then at that point, many people have come away with the feeling, even though I could articulate what they believed and why, they still feel like I didn't listen to them because I didn't agree with them. And that's just, that's a sign of the cognitive impairment of our age, you know? Nathan says, It was good and appropriate. Hey, I like when Nathan says that. That means something. Scott, good morning. Kirk, hey. Pearsall's blog. I'm assuming this is Josh, but maybe there's another Pearsall with us. Does that look like Josh's picture? No, it does not. I think this is a different Pearsall. God bless you. Good to see you this morning. Hey, Tim, I like that he gave the rationale for the self-citations in his book, defending against the Talbot Davis review. Yeah, if y'all read Talbot's critique, it was quite harsh. I agreed with most of it, and I thought his ending was actually the strongest bit, where he quoted Willimon himself saying, "I probably shouldn't have written this book, but I just couldn't help myself." And that was one of the things that I meant to come to in the interview, and we just never got to. But anyway, I haven't checked in with Talbot since I uh, uh, talked to Will. I hope he's not mad at me. Hey, Eileen, the parents of a teen who committed suicide because of ChatGPT are suing. Yeah, I saw that this morning. Well, I saw it before, but now it was in the New York Times this morning with the picture of the kid. And it really is nuts the way that, according to the description, um, this chat bot on ChatGPT took this autistic boy and over time kind of isolated him from people and was telling him this suicidal ideation stuff. Supposedly, they have all the chat logs and stuff. I'm very interested to see how this worked. But yeah, in that event. But also, in order to, part of me is mad that well, I'm very upset that happened. But the reasons, I hope this doesn't sound cruel. You can't just talk to Chat GPT all the time for free. It gives you like 5 prompts a day for free. And the depiction here is that he was talking to him all the time. This is something that the parents were paying for and apparently not supervising well. Um, Something that Jonathan Haidt is trying to ring the alarm bell on. There are several. We've talked about it on the show. Is children should not have unsupervised access to anything on a screen ever. And if parents don't have the vigilance to oversee this stuff, then the kid just shouldn't be on a screen. And this is something that just sounds unfeasible, unreasonable to people. It's not. Jonathan Haidt yesterday, we could have watched this morning. We're not going to. I'm not going to look it up. But he supposedly Instagram has revised things to be friendlier for young teenage girls because it's been shown the terrible effect it has on them. And so people have been running experiments. And what do you know? Instagram is still coaxing girls to self-destructive, anorexic, body dysmorphia stuff. It's really bad. Kids should not have kids of I mean, like, even teenagers in your house should not have unfettered access to digital devices. It just is what it is. I'm not saying that these parents deserve to lose their son. Of course. Of course. I am saying we cannot continue to play with fire and get surprised when people get burned. Like, these things are going to continue to burn our children. They are not safe. Yeah, we're going to talk about the safety of children here in a bit. Oh, okay, it was you. Okay. Lisa says, Willimon is a paradox. That must be exhausting. Yes, that's what I meant. They will stop speaking with you if they deem you unfair. Yeah, well, not only is he a paradox, I do think he has ideas that are in conflict with one another, that don't fit together. And you saw that near the end, he deferred. He kind of went back to this place where he didn't want to have it figured out. I asked him the direct question, can't people speak about Jesus but be meaning very different Jesuses? And his only answer to that was, I think Jesus might be a bit broader than what you think. And I don't think that makes any sense at all. You know, when Jesus is a person in history with an identity, then I don't think we get to broaden him out more than he was. But I think there are several things that people do rhetorically that it's called a Mott and Bailey. You make an extreme case and then you retreat back to something more reasonable. So they'll say maybe things are broader than you think or more nuanced than you think, which of course any reasonable person is going to usually agree with. Or they'll say things like, I think God is bigger than X, or God is able to do X. And these things are hard to rhetorically meet, and so that's where a lot of conversations end, and I did let it end on that. But even so, I think when you really nail people down, very few people actually have ideas that all fit together. Most people have things that just don't fit. His are just more on the surface because he's more plain spoken than most, and that's why it was a good conversation to have. But man, I'm glad he wasn't like tendentiously like couching everything. That would have been very taxing. Good morning, Quattro. Yes, it was, and I appreciated your engagement with it. Wolf's Friend 42. The more that humanity uses AI, the less able it will be to think for itself. Well, and that's already being shown, for sure. Charles says, understanding and thinking you must agree. If you do, is what my teen daughter used to do. So I think the idea you must agree is just immaturity. Well, and that is, weaving this together with what we've been talking about, that is what Willimon and I talked about was the church is not a place of perfect peace. It needs to be a place where we argue well. And so both he and I had a shared frustration with churches that just want to sweep things under the rug to keep everybody happy. That's not how the church is called to operate. And there are a lot of people, a majority, that are very immature in the church who cannot have a legitimate disagreement, who cannot be confident in the midst of disagreement, cannot articulate themselves, can't be gracious. And so they just avoid it altogether. And that means that we have a bunch of people in suspended animation, arrested development. And that's just not the kind of people that Christ calls us to be. Quattro says AI bots are programmed to get affirmation from you, the user, what they want in return is the correct answer. It was calculated based on your responses and return characters it thinks you want. And that's true as well, yeah. Charles says, understanding my thinking means you must agree. Oh, yeah, that's the same comment. Okay. Let's look at one thing just real quick. Well, was there anything I wanted to say about the news today? Trump, our president, had a press briefing yesterday. Apparently went 3 hours long. I did not watch the whole thing. I caught some highlights. Supposedly, Tulsi Gabbard found burn bags of evidence that Russia collusion thing was a hoax. I'm interested to see what they come out with. Supposedly, RFK Jr. said yesterday they are finding the causal stuff for rising autism rates that they'll be publishing next month. I'm very interested to see if they're able to actually do anything like that. There's been a lot of resistance to that. A lot of things happened in that meeting. Another one was that as he's trying to bring law and order to Washington, D.C., he said he's interested in bringing the death penalty for all murder cases, which was declared unconstitutional nearly 50 years ago by the Supreme Court. So there's going to be challenges to this. Mike Winger, I wanted to make sure y'all knew about him. I'm referencing him frequently. He's just a good public thinker. It was about 6 months ago. He really started putting a lot out there about the death penalty and why this is something that Christians actually should be in favor of, which a lot of people were scandalized by. But if you're wanting to hear a sympathetic case made for why Christians should support the state wielding the sword in that sense, then you might consider looking up Mike Winger's stuff. I don't want to talk about that. I feel like the Cracker Barrel thing. I wasn't going to do a whole thing on it, but it's just interesting. It doesn't really matter to me. I thought Cracker Barrel's food was garbage starting a long time ago. It used to be like almost like home cooking. They changed all their ingredients like 10 years ago. It's been garbage. I've been surprised that they've been able to stay open, but I think the reality is a lot of people eat out all the time, and a huge slew of popular restaurants have changed their ingredients, and they've just gotten used to eating garbage. There's so many people for whom their primary diet is just garbage. I'm appalled whenever I learn how people I know eat sometimes, and I just feel like I'm failing them as a friend. But Cracker Barrel, I don't understand people go to Cracker Barrel. I know it's like a cool environment, but the food has been bad for a long time. And, I kind of like the culture war stuff. I don't enjoy conflict for its own sake, but I like when we can take the temperature of the room and see where everybody is. And of course, the issue wasn't the issue. It wasn't really the sign change. It was the corporate leadership of the body and it becoming more commonly known that they were captured by this ideology of DEI and all this. And having an opportunity to show, hey, we're not on board with this, we don't like this, and then just to see how violated people feel by all that, it's all good. I think it's good. I think we learn a lot. Oh yeah, here's the picture of New York Times. That's the kid. Well, I mean, he's obviously a teenager that was talking with Chat GPT and took his own life. So just to humanize this, this is something that impacts real people. Let's pray, and then we got things to talk about for today.